Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Tellman and Fellman Show, episode 45, is it?
45.
Oh, my God, it's episode 45. Tellman has dragged me into a daily show, and we've done 45 of them. Consistency, something that I don't have enough of in my life. My name, of course, is Harris Fellman, and the bald guy to the left of the attractive guy is...
That's right. I'm Tellman Knudsen, and we have a very, very, very special guest today for our episode who has the most succinct bio that any of our special guests have given us so far. Harris, you want to read it?
Yeah, Kevin Nations was one of the pioneers of the big ticket consulting movement within the online marketing community. He now helps clients to become chillionaires. We're gonna find out what that means, and it says it. Look at that. Building lives that feel as great as building lives that feel as great on the inside as they attempt to make them look on the outside. Okay, cool. I can get, it's the shortest one, and I had trouble with it. I don't know why. Anyway, Kevin, welcome. Thanks for coming on the show. It's great to see you again.
Hey guys, been a long time actually.
Yeah, it has. Awesome. Well, so Kevin, I feel like you and I met later in my marketing career. Maybe you connected with or met Harris far earlier. I'm not sure. Like, how, in your memory, how far back did you connect with Harris or I? Do you remember?
Well, for sure, I know at least 15 years ago, and it might have been more than that because I have a video proof that I cornered him at some event and got him to he let me interview him. I had an idea to do Fail Your Way because I was having some failure. but fail your way, not the failure way, not like just
the failure way.
Talking about how people did have failures in their success and how most I think successful people treat failure differently than at least what most people do. So anyway, I sent that to Kevin. There's a 5-minute video out there that and I guess I did a longer interview with you. I rewatched the video, and I don't know where the rest of it is. It was for the members area that never happened, so it must be on a old hard drive somewhere. But I'm sure it was great. So anyway,
your private clients.
Yes, for my private clients. But so that's I'm sure we communicated before then, or you probably wouldn't have sat down with me. But
you were at that time, to my recollection, a friend of Ross Goldberg's, who I
was.
And Ross was an early connection of mine. I had the privilege of speaking on some stages he put together, and he was a pioneer in that back in the day, putting small little groups together, bringing people together. I don't know when we met, Tellman. I've been aware of you for probably most of, if not all, the entirety of my career. You did work, you have done work, maybe still continue to, in the areas of hypnosis and helping people do, well, I see here the hypnotist. So, you had done things for quite some time in hypnosis. Obviously, and when I say, let me just qualify, a long time, I've been doing this about 22 years.
Yeah.
And I think for about 20 of that, I've been familiar with your, I would say, very novel approach, and it continues to be, to email marketing. I don't market via email, but I really enjoy getting yours because they come from such unexpected places. They come from myself in the future. They come from some other version of me. And so obviously that really, I would imagine, helps quite a bit with the opens and stuff. So I don't know when we met, to be honest, but I've been aware of you and your impact on the community for probably at least as long as I've known Harris. So at least 15 years, maybe more.
Yeah.
This is the first guest, I think, that said doesn't market via email. I think that deserves a stopping point. Some sort of alarm needs to go off. That, like, Tellman and I are both like, that's where we go back to. For me, when people here knew me, even, I was actually doing internet email marketing stuff. So how's that possible? How do you have how's that possible that you don't have an email list?
I have one. I don't think I've sent a email either scheduled or broadcast for perhaps a couple of years, and maybe 5 emails totally in maybe the last maybe 5 or 6 years. At one
Wow.
point, I sent
All right.
emails frequently, but at this point, I engage mostly through Facebook Messenger with and Facebook groups with different clients and friends and prospective clients, and then do a lot through referral. Um, that it's interesting that you bring up email, and I think it's a very powerful form of marketing. But when I came into this industry, as you referenced 15 years ago, Harris, out of corporate sales. And I went to my first event, which was in 2002, I believe. It was the first or second big seminar from Armin Bourne.
Yeah, yeah. I used to go to all those. Yeah,
And we may have crossed paths there.
probably.
Um, and so I heard lots of people from the stage talking about their big email list and selling lots of things from the stage. Some of the current names in the market were present back then. Frank Kern was talking about how to train parrots to talk. Russell Brunson was talking about how to sell um,
Tailor
plans,
manufacturing.
plans for spud guns. Absolutely. And so both of those gentlemen have come a long way. Super proud of our industry. But we were talking about these big email lists. I couldn't do that, but as Harris noted 15 years ago, I watched that video as well last night that you shared with me, Harris. Thank you. The year before, I had um, built about 150 before getting in this industry. Built about 150-person company within a little over a year, about 14 months, and then exited. And then the year before that, I'd sold about 150 odd $1 million of professional services in big tech. And so I knew how to sell high ticket things, but all of this getting a big email list and marketing to them, even from the onset, scared me, still does. And so I went quite the opposite direction, more intimacy with clients and charging more money versus having a lot of them.
Yeah, did you never have a, like, a low ticket front end offer or even a mid-level ticket? Is it just pretty much I teach I mean, I know pretty well about, your rapid selling system. I this is what I teach, and it's whatever. Maybe you started at $5,000 and eventually the price went up. I think you've talked about that, as well. And there was nothing from clearly, it sounds like there was no way to opt in for free, and was there any in between way to engage with you?
I ran a blog for a bit before being introduced to Facebook in about 2007. That changed my life. And I ran a
Facebook
blog.
changed your life positively, you're saying?
It did indeed.
Yeah.
Um, and it has. It's the connections that I have made and sustained on there. We chatted on Facebook Messenger. You invited me to join this morning through Facebook Messenger, and that was the entirety of our exchange. I saw that Ross had said, "Hey, it might be good to have Kevin on," and we were old friends, and that exchange happened through Facebook. So for all of its ills, and there are many, for all of its distractions, and there are many, it's a huge impact positively in my business. But I had sold a lot, and so I started working, more intimately with clients. And no, I did have a $397 product and sold tens of units
Oh,
at one point, maybe 20 total
yeah.
over time. And so yes, I've had maybe one or two events over the years that have sold for less than $5,000, but for the most part, um, like the vast majority of my audience, five, eight, $10,000 has been the entry point to our
Yeah,
relationship.
that's great. I love seeing it done differently and direct, like that. So, and by the way, I am still in touch with Ross regularly, weekly, maybe more. He was my marketing person for my traffic business for 7, 8, 9 years. I don't know. He would know how many years it was. So, and we still kind of do some stuff together. So it's good to good to still be in touch with him. He's a great guy.
I think for someone listening to this or watching this, The message I've already heard in the first 4 or 5 minutes that we've gone on is don't forget the long game when you're playing the short game. There, obviously, if you're on and you're either early in or facing some resistance at this point in your career or facing some opportunity at this point in your career, however long you've been involved. Just about everything that's been discussed so far, notwithstanding the topics, we're talking about relationships that have gone on for decades. And if you're going to sustain yourself in any business you're going to be in, you're going to have people who are going to know you for decades. Make their knowing of you be positive.
Yeah.
Make their impressions of you be positive.
Yeah.
That's probably the number one secret to success that I would share. Most of the people that I know that are successful now have, as they've grown, however long they've been in, as they've grown, their the amount of goodwill that they have at their tailwind, as tailwinds, continues to grow. And the people I've seen who've had very short-lived careers, the amount of headwinds they've gotten by lack of goodwill or small mishaps,
Yeah.
maybe not complete mishaps, but what they might claim to be mishaps. I think there are far more life lessons to just basic common sense in business than some, secret. That's no secret at all. Just treat people well.
Yeah, yeah. I went 10, 11 years with the traffic business, and I'll be honest. I started, and I also moved out of the country. I've lived outside of the U.S. for a long time, and then the pandemic happened, so I sure wasn't going to events for a while, and I haven't been for a while. So I've lost touch with people. And then when my business got hacked and went to nothing earlier this year, I mean, thank goodness I still had, even the relationships that I hadn't talked to in a couple of years, I still had good, equity, whatever you call it, with them as well. So yeah, I mean, I can't be more, I can't agree more for sure. Yeah.
I really like the idea of really focusing in on increasing intimacy and connection between your clients and the people that you're connecting with online over the traditional, build a million person list and then spam the crap out of it and make a ton of money, which I did for many, many, many years. And I remember, when I learned how to do all this stuff, at first I was selling through affiliate marketing. I was selling other people's stuff because I didn't know how to write sales copy or really sell. And then eventually we developed our own products, and then we had sales floors doing our high ticket selling and selling our coaching programs for us. And we sold millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of stuff, but I had no idea how to do high ticket sales. And the sale was done, and then I never talked to the clients or customers again. It was just like they bought the thing, we shipped out the course, and that was the end of it, unless they asked for a refund, And I was at a point where...
Which never happened.
Yeah, right. I was at a point in my life and my business where we didn't have high ticket sales years later, and I went to your small events, big profits workshop in Vegas, 3-day workshop, and between that and your rapid selling system, I learned how to do high ticket sales myself, and kind of faced a lot of resistance that I had around connecting more intimately and deeply with my clients, because one of the reasons I went online was to escape having to connect with people directly. Like I was a hypnotherapist. I had 3 years of hypnotherapy under my belt, and I didn't like having that level of connection and intimacy. I was like, how can I make a lot more money with a lot less connection for quite a few years, right? And so I really have enjoyed what I learned from you, and I still use Rapid to this day whenever I get on the phone, and because it's the only sales high ticket sales process I worked. I was like, what's the acronym again? And then I rewatched that 30-minute video I was texting you about last night. Like that whole system and process that you've developed over the years is really amazing. Not just for making money and being able to bring high ticket in-house into a small business operation, but I found it to be incredibly good, like learning how to do high ticket sales. I found it to be like it's almost like personal development. It's very empowering because it's scary. Like get on the phone for the first time and like pitch somebody something for $5,000 or 10 grand, like it's a nerve-wracking experience. And then you have to inevitably deal with people who say no. You have to deal with rejection, all these things. So I
But the way Kevin positions it, it's almost welcome that they say no, because it really focuses on that it's a numbers game, and you're like, okay, this wasn't for them, and we got to it. He'd
yeah,
rather have a no than a maybe, right?
I mean, in an ideal world, I suppose. I'm Kevin. I'm curious if you'll talk about the Chillionaire process and to what degree you're still using your rapid selling system in your business or in what you teach, how it's evolved, how it's changed. I just wanted to say it's like it made a huge impact on me, and I've um, shared my enthusiasm about that model and working with you over the years with a ton of people because it has
Well,
been
but
such
it's
a
visible.
helpful
Like
tool. You know?
I know I read that he's the pioneer of big ticket consulting movement, but it's absolutely true. It's visible. Like I've been on the other side of it, with like somebody pitching a high ticket, weight loss or something like that, and I'm like, oh, this is that, and then also to a point where there might be even in kind of biz op coaching, I'd say there's almost a saturation of it where customer, like just regular old customers, quickly recognize it and and they're like, oh wait, I'm being sold, and so because they've heard the basic pitch, so many times, but it's I mean, it's just kind of proof of it, of how influential it's been.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people who have used it, modified it, people with a lot wider reach than I've ever developed directly that have propagated the use of it or some iteration of it for, quite some time. It's humbling, and I'm honored to know that it's helped you, Tellman, because it was designed um, for you, like as an avatar, that person who's good at something, who believes in it, and wants to um, offer something up at its onset. Uh, my initial work, I quickly found out that I wasn't as maybe good at the celebrity side of building this big following, but I did have some insight into a couple of key areas that were worth quite a bit of money. And so I made that decision to sell an exclusive group of people. When you're charging that as much, it's not only the price point, but also your focus. That I wanted to sell an exclusive group of people. I've had a mastermind since 2006, which usually runs around 45, 50 members. Um, Pretty consistently. It's been up at times to maybe 100. That wasn't as comfortable, and it's been down to maybe 25 or 30 at times, but usually runs about 40 to 50 members. And I like that. It's quite intimate. Somebody asked about a mastermind today online. Actually, it was a mutual friend of all of ours, Matt Gill, asked about that. And
Yeah.
one of my clients piped up and said, "Hey, I've been a part of this for 10 years." And that was good to hear. But it's obviously, if you've got people that have been in that long and you only have 40 to 50 members, not everybody's joining. And
Right.
that's exclusivity, not because it is hierarchically better or worse than others. I don't know that when I talk about exclusivity, I'm not talking about mine being a better or worse. I think that's a fallacy sometimes, that what we have in business is the best. I just think for the people who are a member, it's the most applicable. So I look, rather than some sort of, you know, linear ranking tool, I look more at a bullseye, so that for the people who are a member, and especially for those who stay for a long time, it hits their target more closely than something else might. And for people who don't, or people who aren't a fit, so my initial business offering was helping, in my view, really valuable nerds who didn't have the maybe celebrity eloquence of the people who were on the big stages. to level the financial playing field and sell something at a higher price to fewer people and develop it and deliver it more intimately. Whereas their, you know, by avatar competitors were selling something which I'll qualify this definition because it is confronting, but I don't mind the confrontation. Whenever you're selling something to the masses that is relevant to the masses, it is by definition inferior to something that's being sold to the elite by design. Uh, that doesn't necessarily mean that the company needs to be less elite, but the product is indeed. Toyota sells a lot of cars. Toyota is a great company. Ford sells a lot of F 150s. I own one. Ford is a great company. Neither of those cars is as thoughtfully built as a Rolls Royce, although both of those companies are great companies. You may want to invest in Ford before you invest in Rolls Royce as an investor, but as a vehicle, um, if you're specifically only looking for care and specificity and design, a Rolls Royce is a better car for the unique design of it and the unique features of it. More exclusive, let's just say.
Right.
And so it hits the bullseye at a different level. And so I wanted to, and sells for a much higher price. You could probably buy, let's just see, what about 6 or 7 F-150s for what you could buy a Rolls for. So that I wanted to level that playing field and to help teach people that were less eloquent, but in my opinion, more effective in what they did, that they could sell to a more intimate, exclusive market and price that higher. In the history of things, as you guys have mentioned, big ticket has been democratized and democratized to a great deal through people attempting through, as you made allusion to, Tellman, through the insertion of sales teams, fluffers, pre-sales teams, that type of thing, to take away the intimacy in the sales and many times even in the delivery process and democratize that, which isn't poor, but it does take away one of the things that made big ticket sustainable, which is the exclusivity. Now, people are attempting to run funnels to big ticket, and that it does work, but you cannot have a business that begins with mass inclusion and then funnel for exclusion. And otherwise, typically, you're not going to find a Rolls Royce buyer among the pool of people at a hot dog giveaway on a Ford lot. They're
Right.
going to reach
Right.
differently. So the fantasy that people have done that their ideal big ticket buyer is somewhere in the funnel at all. The challenge with big ticket being done exclusively, predominantly, and being a derivative of an inclusive marketing process is that the people who are the ideal big ticket buyers are nowhere in the funnel. They never entered the funnel. They won't be in the funnel. They have never been found in a funnel. And so there is no way to funnel for the ideal big ticket buyers. They never entered it in the past, or they never entered it at all. And so that's one of the things that made, what I did a bit unique and helped it have some sort of sustainability independent of those people who created a inclusive first and exclusive as a derivative of inclusive versus exclusive as an alternative to inclusive business. And so, that's been helpful. And then really, really quickly to wrap up, because I know I've talked for a long time. One of the things I started noticing was that, in this intimacy as a distinction from intimacy and exclusive business as a distinction from a popularity / inclusive business, also started noticing in many people the um, noticing that money uh, as a representative number on a PowerPoint slide for revenue income, as many people point out, was less of the most predominant currency in the happy people that I saw. And we all want to make more money many times, but I didn't find that the people who grossed more revenue were necessarily the highest representative sample of the people that I wanted to model my life after. And I didn't want that to be the factor of my life that I represented, that others modeled after me. Just the gross income that I was able to pull in. Certainly, that's not what I want to show my kids. So that's not what I wanted to show my clients either. And it's not the thing in my life I'm most proud of. So that's why I started focusing more on the Chillionaire model, taking the same things I'd done early on in business and moving them over to a more holistic model about life, which does include business and income, but includes other things, and just asking people, hey, what do you value most? Well, why not solve your life equation directly from that versus solving it for money and hoping that that thing is going to be in your funnel coming from money. So anyway, we'll talk more about that as you guys ask
Yeah, well,
questions.
I'm definitely probably the most interested in talking about that, but I do want to go back to this idea that you didn't come right out and say it, but that like the idea of like a low you didn't say low ticket funnel, but basically like a low ticket funnel, mass market funnel. It's basically throwing a wide net because the economics of it. This is how I'm going to be able to pay Facebook to get a whole bunch of people, but within that net, there you can't catch a whale in that net. Now you can catch a bunch of people who ascend to become, bigger fish, but kind of by the definition of the whole thing, because you start off with something ultra inclusivity, and then you're just getting you're basically they're self-selecting to be the exclusive ones. You you're stating, and I think I agree that there's by definition, there's not gonna be the avatar client of the quality high ticket that of somebody that's only going after the exclusive. In other words, just by the sheer nature of the way the marketing is done, and that the sheer nature of the way that the high ticket product is created, it's almost by definition not able to be as good as the Rolls Royce. Does that sound about right?
Not as exclusive.
Not as exclusive.
Um, so I know a number of people who run an inclusive business that now sell high ticket access from inclusion that um, gross and net a higher income than I do and that many of my clients do. So I'm not making that argument that um, one couldn't derive a very, very large business from that inclusion model. What I'm saying is that myself and my clients, many of them, I certainly have, I've probably spent about $5,000 on advertising over 22 years. Um, and that's just been because people have said, oh, well, let me run some ads for you. And I would say, okay, let's do this, like clients and friends, maybe 5 to 10,000, but certainly I've certainly never spent more than an average across my time of more than maybe $1,000 a year, $100 a month on advertising. In any sense, direct mail, Facebook marketing, anything like that. And so, nearly all of my clients come through direct referrals or just the
Well, early on though, so I get that now you have, you've got momentum, and the word has been out about you for, 10, 12, 15 years. But early on, how do you basically jump out, or I guess if you were to start
raise the
today,
debt.
what?
Jesus Christ had an orthodoxy that is widely accepted to be amazing, across. I'm not saying everyone agrees with it, but it was adopted by a number of people. But his orthodoxy wasn't what put him on the map. When he went out, it wasn't that he said, "Oh, this orthodoxy." People said, "Oh, we agree. This is so great. This is some, spiritual enlightenment." As the story goes, and I'm not arguing for the truth of it or the
Sure.
non-truth of it, but it is a very useful parable, whether one asserts that it's true or not. As the story goes, Jesus Christ began to work miracles, and he raised the dead, and he healed the sick, and he made a bunch of food for people who were hungry. When you do that, you begin to get a following of believers, right? And so one of my first clients, I went and worked with them, and for private consulting, and when I got in this business, and they made like $30,000 in the day I was there. So then that led to other clients, beginning to work with me. And this is something that, I have to look in the mirror frequently for. Now, one of the challenges that many people have that cast a wide net is the dilution of results, in that they might use the case studies of one or two clients, but when they get a wide net of clients, the amortized um, amount of their success begins to dilute as you get across the entire cross section of people that have done them. So I get that. I'm challenged on that sometimes, even from new clients, Harris. Of course, you can do this now, Kevin, but what about
Yeah.
when I began my career? Not only was I not known, but selling through big ticket, as Tellman alluded to, the reason many marketers were in the marketing space was to escape any need to interface with humanity. Not only was that the practiced orthodoxy, that was the preached
That's
orthodoxy.
right. That's right.
People would get on stage, that was to be celebrated. I live at the end of a long street with a gate at the end, and nobody knows me but the mailman and the person delivering the FedEx checks.
Right.
That, then I go, the only friend I have in my life is
Mailman.
the postmistress who, accepts my direct mail letters and brings me back the checks. Essentially, that was the classical argument of success in the day. So not only was I not known, I was like literally arguing against the approved orthodoxy. I was Martin Luther banging the Protestant message on the walls of the walled church of "Thou shalt keep clients at a distance because this is good for your psyche." And then I was saying, no, bring them in, not because I'm some extrovert, because I'm not. I'm
Right.
just an extrovert. So mine isn't the lack of intimacy, it's the intimacy with a smaller group of people, which I actually have fun interfacing with. So I'm just as, um, this might be not great for a public interview, but I'm just as sketched out by the general, people of humanity as any other nerd that has a skill that just wants to sit and hone it, like many of people who are really good at something are. I like my skill, but I do like, that's why I ran as Tellman came to, the big money from small events. It's not just about having fiscal leverage. It's about having 4 or 5 or maybe 10 at the most on a great day, people in my house in a controlled environment where I just go downstairs, and during lunch, I can go up, as Tellman recalls, we were in a 2-level place. Everybody went down through a separate entrance to the lower level, which was a conference room. But on lunch, I could go escape to my own, bedroom and breathe. I now live in the Waldorf Astoria on the Strip, where I can run my events in a big meeting room downstairs, and I can stand on a stage and do certain things. But at lunch, or even on a 10-minute break, I can come upstairs to my own room, my own, condo home where I'm sitting right now, and breathe and escape in a place that's familiar. So a lot of my business was set up not just so much for financial wins, but also to work around and or work through um, my um, emotional and human weirdnesses, and to learn a way to manage through those. And someone who doesn't admit that they have those, although those might be much different than mine,
Yeah.
somebody that
We're
doesn't
all
admit
messed
that
up.
they have those does themselves a disservice.
That's right.
So, yep.
Oh, Harris, you're muted.
I was going to say I'm probably too open to people, and that's gotten me, into trouble sometimes as well. One thing that I wanted to say is that this idea of you're looking to create a group of clients you're looking for a group of clients that you enjoy being around. So therefore, what is even a sales call to you other than that's what you're looking for, and you're not like so when they're like, yeah, no, I don't think this is for me. I mean, it sounds like you're like, great, you're right. you know,
My answer to any objection is thanks for letting me know.
yeah, yeah, cool. So yeah, Tellman, do you have anything before we move into the Chillionaire?
Yeah,
I'm
well, I
super
was going
interested
to
in that.
say, so what are you really teaching or sharing or helping people around these days with Chillionaire? Yeah, I'm curious how your rapid process has or hasn't changed. Some of the like what how are you supporting people? What are you teaching them? What does that look like these days?
I really want to hear this, but my bladder doesn't. So I'll be back in 15 seconds. But just answer, and I'll see it.
Just turn the volume up. You can keep listening as
That's
you
right.
relieve, as the relief happens.
That's right.
So the rapid process, Tellman, which you made an allusion to maybe wanting to get in front of more people, and we can talk about that. I'd love to. Um, Many of my clients still use that. I think it's a very effective process because I think it just cuts to the truth. If someone wants to work with you, it gives them the opportunity to. If they don't, it gives them the opportunity to. It's certainly not in any way, in my opinion, well, it is a high pressure sales call, but it doesn't pressure people toward yes. It pressures people toward finding out what they want to do for themselves, which I think is of service to both parties, rather than trying to internally and in a projection think that your safest bet is a story that may or may not be true. My fantasy, and hopefully I can sustain this, is that in the world that your best position is just the bare naked truth.
Mhm.
And then that saves us all from any future misunderstandings. So
Right.
that, yeah, I love the rapid process. I run events sometimes and teach. I still teach the big money from small events. I run that from time to time. I just work closely. I do. I have people referred into and have quite a bit of renewals in the mastermind that I run. So it continues on. And right now, I'm just I think studying more than teaching, because I think that I'm praying, and I use that word somewhat loosely because not to get into some spiritual discussion,
Hoping.
but I never know what or who to pray to. I just, like for me, that's like some grand hope upon all of the world. So let's just make that my definition of prayer, although I take it seriously. So I'm praying and hoping that um, the world, individually and collectively, I see evidence of this, moves toward it being okay to want what one wants.
Mm.
In the Christian story, which I grew up hearing, if you've heard
Yep.
my
Me
usual,
too. Yep.
and I don't reject it, nor do I wholeheartedly endorse it, but I do accept that it's a very useful story. And in the Christian story, the whole purpose of Christ coming, if you boil it down, was to eliminate the middleman and to tell people that it was okay for them to follow their own conscience. And he used the word like the comforter. In modern day iterations of that, use the word the Holy Spirit. So we're just saying it's okay to follow your own conscience. And what more beautiful story to tell your kids? What more beautiful story to tell your business proteges, that it's okay not to want what I want, for yourself. If you can make utility of some of the skills that I have and apply them toward what you want. So many um, people, as we've moved into the mentorship space, operate from a position of low self-esteem. So in their low self-esteem, they're in like that fourth level of Maslow's hierarchy project process or procession, that they need acknowledgement and they need their ego boosted because they haven't moved into self-actualization. A lot of people that are in leadership are alleged leadership are in that, and so as such, they need everyone to follow them.
Mhm.
And so hopefully, I can be a bit of a voice against that and say, um, follow yourself. But it's important to find yourself, but follow yourself.
Mhm.
And if you are okay with what you want, then be okay with what you want. I know it's a bit of a circular argument, but I think it's an amazing one. Like, find out what you want, be okay with wanting what you want, build what you want, and use whatever tools you need to do, but solve for what you want. Don't solve for something else and hope that what you want evolves from it.
Right.
And I think that's what, many have said. It was said in a more concise way. It was said often in the business space. People would say, "Oh, get a bigger list and you'll make more money." Well, as you guys know from practice, that's not necessarily true. It can be, but there's no correlation between list size and amount of money you make. If you have an incredibly efficient list and you raise the size of it, you make more money. If you have a very inefficient list and you raise the size of it, you may not make more money. You may just have, if you go buy a CD full of spammed email lists or spammed emails, you get your business shut down. You make even less money.
Well, even now more so if you have a a medium sized email list that is not efficient and you try to expand it, you're actually drilling you're digging the hole deeper
Right.
because
Exactly. And so what I feel like I did in the big ticket thing that I started was I was trying to solve for personal income.
Mhm.
And now I think Chillionaire takes it a step further, and I'm certainly not master at it. I don't know that I ever will be, but I'm attempting to solve for a person's right for their own self autonomy and self authorship, and to let them know that it's okay to ask questions, to pray, to meditate, whatever they want to do. Even in that how they find it is their own choice, but it's okay to solve for what metric or currency you value most, and then solve for that in your life, and you're going to be the most successful when you're at the peak of whatever you value the most. And then whatever helps you get there is fine, but don't necessarily fall prey to, um, since I've used the word prey, I'll use this word. Don't fall prey to the predators online that would have you endorse and follow them in some kind of hierarchy, submission, dominant role, because they have low self-esteem, that
Mhm.
tell you, "Oh, if you follow my model, it's going to give you what you want." Well, that's not necessarily true. And if you don't know what you want, you'll be even more susceptible to those.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest tricks. Is like, it's, in any entry level internet marketing, biz op, how to make money, anything. I think that the number one reason for people's failure is that they don't go in with any clarity on where they're going, and so they just grab opportunity after opportunity to try to make some cash, right? Where there's nothing in alignment about that whatsoever, right? There's
right,
like,
they're not coming in with, oh, what do I want in the I'm gonna maybe spiritual or deeper sense. They're coming in with, I got to make money. I want to make I want to have a side hustle or what have you. So yeah, that's you touched on a lot of things. Do you think there's I just finished reading War of Art for the fourth or fifth time, and you mentioned hierarchy. With Chillionaire, do you talk some about like the hierarchical system that people are in versus the how did War of Art put it? Yeah, I guess the self-directed system. It's versus comparing myself to others and comparing myself to what I want. Do you like is that anything that you kind of reflect
Well,
on?
there's I mean, billions of dollars being spent for cult programming that says, if you carry a Louis Vuitton backpack, you're better than a guy carrying a Hurley backpack. If you, we talked about, exclusive products, and I'm not against those. I have a Louis Vuitton backpack.
I live at the Waldorf Astoria.
I
So,
have a backpack I bought off Shein, and guess what? They both carry the things
yeah.
that I need, just as effectively and for their utility. I like them both. Um, I, I mentioned I have a Rolls Royce and I have F-150, so I love them both. They both have their utility. So I think, but there is a lot of money being spent saying, that it's not okay to want what you want because you should want what I say you want. We are, as we tape this, some 2 weeks, 3 weeks from a political election in the US. And, my side good, your side, the end of democracy, the end of
Right.
humanity, maybe,
Right.
whatever side that is. But how can a group of people who, let's just say, allegedly have an equivalent amount of intellect and wisdom. And I would agree. I think that both, members of the left and the right, if you were to look at them academically and then from a sense of wisdom, I would say they would fare pretty equally, although they disagree perhaps on, political directions. How can two groups of people that are fairly evenly stacked intellectually and spiritually have such divergent views and such intolerant, in many cases, intolerant views be so blind or willingly blind of the opposing sides?
That's right.
The effectiveness of their argument, and it can't be that misunderstood. Whichever side of the coin, I'm not arguing for a side. I'm just arguing for how could this many intellectually sound and spiritually discerning people be this naive, while this other group of people of fairly equivalent intellect and wisdom be this enlightened? It just seems interesting. But that is, I love Maslow because it explains a lot. If you relate a lot, many people who are, let's say, relegating their choices to one particular direct movement or not, they're operating in like level 2 of Maslow, where they feel that they're much more safe if I'm not even going to mention the two sides, but if this one wins,
Right.
We'll use green and yellow since they're not the two.
That's right. That's right.
If green wins, then we do have a green party, right? But
Yeah, but that's
Whatever.
if green wins, the world is safe, and if yellow wins, the world is doomed. Well, what does that say about that person's autonomy? It literally means that their autonomy is complete, or their survival is
leader
outside themselves. They've completely given up the right of self-authorship.
Right.
And so, I just refuse to myself to go or to allow friends and clients to, without massive resistance from me, go into that sort of willful relegation of the self-authorship of their own lives.
Yeah, it's interesting. You bring up self-authorship, and what immediately comes up for me is, I mean, I'm super into AI, and I'm nervous as I use it so much that it's taking away some of my, my self-authorship. Like I'll go to it to help me think, and I'm like,
Right.
oh my gosh, what's going on here? I'm not, so I am paying attention to it, but it is a concern, and I'm sure that, you know, people that are, and I can be pretty lazy. People that are just a tad lazier than me are just going to get sucked even further away from that. I think we talked to Jesse Elder a little bit about that as well. He's
That's right.
another one that talks about self-authorship even more strongly than we have so far here. But yeah, that kind of comes up for me. And I guess I'm probably so I'm living in the UK right now. What election are you talking? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting that whole and it happened. I mean, it happens in sports too, right? Like you can zoom in and zoom out on it when people break off into opposing tribes and fight with each other, right? It seems that not all humans are exclusively limited to this all the time, but it seems like as soon as we start getting together in groups, that human beings are literally wired to conquer each other and to get into those opposing fights. This isn't always universally true, but
I
most of the
disagree.
time it seems to be true. And like Why is it that everyone's constantly striving for world peace, yet we're never even coming close to achieve it? I think it has something to do with how humans are wired. Like we're wired to get stupid and to fight it with each other.
I think we're wired. I think the exact opposite. I think we're wired to cooperate, and the powers that be have figured out that if we can separate people, then we can still have power over them.
Mm. What do you think, Kevin? Who's right? Me or
Speak to
Harris? Vote, please. Vote, damn it.
That would be the laziest response ever. Well, obviously, with the two, hold on just a moment.
I'm holding on for dear life.
This is the biggest cliffhanger ever.
That's right, right. Very,
There you
very
go.
nice.
Sorry, buddy.
Strategically placed pause.
Yes, obviously, with the conversation around politics and sports, we're not wired to fight. We're wired to observe battles from the stands, safely from the stands.
That's good. I like that. I like
And
that.
the challenge in many of current Western societies, we are not that far removed from the era of the gladiators, where we like to see battles, but we want to buy our way into them as cheaply as possible.
That's right.
And to advocate for fights where we have, no hope whatsoever of getting our nose bloodied. And I think that,
And
much
we did it. We won. We killed that dragon
That's right.
from the sideline.
we did it if we're on the winning team. If you
That's
stand outside the exiting stands of a let's just say a football match, we won. And you get all the people like, we won, and they lost.
Right.
There's a disassociation from losing. We talked about this upcoming political battle. There's going to be a strong dissociation from the candidate on the losing side immediately following the contest.
Of course.
Even from within the party, I knew they weren't fit for this. This applies, insert either of the candidates. I knew they weren't up for this. Here's a list of all of their flaws. Here's what they could have done differently. As I think it was Bertrand Russell said, war doesn't determine who's right, just who's left.
That's right.
A narrative is formed by the people who, end up winning. One of the things that I'll say to endorse both of the candidates, because I think quite a bit has been said to unendorse them, both of the candidates, to endorse both of the candidates, and to actually invite people watching this. Both of those are, whether you like this arena or not that they're in, both of the candidates, I'll call them by name in this statement, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, however they ended up, and they both ended up through some of the most unorthodox ways that any two candidates each have arrived in the political arena. Donald Trump for a little bit longer now, but when he arrived a few years back, it was very unorthodox, and Kamala Harris, and now very unorthodox. Both of them are in the arena of being castigated, hated, maligned, talking poorly about, and they are tolerating, to whatever degree they are, the heat of the arena much better each than anyone who is speaking poorly of them likely could.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
That's
100%.
usually how it goes, right?
100%.
And so, and I would suggest that there are people that are in this industry that, I talked about having differences of views with inclusion versus exclusion. I say some things that are in many times contrasting to what some of my friends, how they operate businesses.
Right.
But one of the things that I admire is that somebody who's in the arena of business, putting themselves out there, sometimes even in ways that I disagree with, but putting themselves out there for examination by the marketplace, for acceptance or rejection by the marketplace. And my hat's off to someone who does that to provide for the financial and legacy continuation of their family and their whatever they're about. So I'll say that to endorse both of the candidates. They are in the arena, which is more than can be said for many of the people who are speaking of them, and they are fighting the fight. They will accept the triumphant crown, whatever that is, of leading our country at this point, or the bitter loss, the crushing defeat of not winning at some point. I don't expect that to be a quick one either way, but
Yeah.
at some point they will accept that to some degree. And
Whether they ever accept it publicly or not, we'll see, but they have to accept it in reality.
right, but they're in the arena, and that's one of the things that I would advocate. Is that's one of the reasons that I don't weigh in a lot on them specifically, as I would much rather be in the arena of my own life, changing the things that I could. And you guys brought up Jesse Elder. If you're watching this and not following him, look him up. He is
Oh
a
yeah, Jesse's
gem
great.
of a man, a good friend of mine, and we have frequent. We meet and hang out fairly frequently and speak much more frequently than that. Really, really great guy. But yes, they at least those guys and gals are in the arena. If you don't like the arena they're in, find one that matters to you and get in it.
That's right.
And when you're out fighting on the arena, I can tell you that the people on the playing field care so much less about what's happening in the stands during the game than the people in the stands care about what's happening in the arena. So be
Right.
someone being spoken about, good or bad, rather than someone who's just always making observations from the safety of non-commitment.
That's right.
Cool. So how do we do that? So you want, you're basically saying your Chillionaire talks about people doing what they want. This is what, like, finding what they want and actually doing it. And now you're talking about being in the arena. This is the same thing. Go fight the thing. Go
Fight.
win
Or,
at.
or, or
It's a
the
fight.
thing
It's a
and
fight.
figure
It's a
out,
fight
yeah,
against resistance, if nothing else. I mean, I
You just
from
said
from
the
my
War of Art that you had been reading. The first two words of that book title are the war,
yeah,
and
exactly.
so it is
It
life
is.
a fight, even if it's a fight of relaxation and peace and zen. To sit on a lotus leaf and fold one's hands and to say Om
Yeah,
is an intensive spiritual battle in and of itself.
yeah, yeah.
Because everything about you try to sit down and quiet the mind for an hour, and ask yourself, if you don't get distracted, oh, did I turn the stove off? What about that email? Let me go check. Let me go get my dopamine hit from my phone. Let me scroll
right.
some shorts. Let me do this. Life is a fight from the moment we wake up until we go to sleep, and then a different one all through our dreams. So
And I just want to, you know, anybody that is fighting the fight, honor yourself right this second. Like I'm literally thinking about it right now. This is what's going through my head because first of all, I was going to say, on Monday I'm going to be trying out for the Magic Circle, which is I'm looking, which is it's in the UK, but it's the professional magicians club basically, and I sometimes feel like I'm not fighting the fight enough, but I'm acknowledging to myself and giving myself like you're in the fight. I'm looking to I want to be I want to be a full-time performer at some point. And I'm reading the Magic Circle book, circular that they send out, and there's an interview with a guy named Mario the Maker Magician or something like that. And there was something that really stuck with me, and I feel is apropos, do what you love and follow the opportunities that appear.
Mm.
So, like, I've heard so much, do what you love and the money will follow, and I don't resonate with that. That's like I wish
Sometimes
that
too.
were that
Sometimes
were
too.
I of course it's so, but it has not been that has not been my life. It's do what I love, and all of a sudden I don't have money, and now I need to go do the thing that I know that makes me money. You know. So, it looks like you're thinking and listening. Do you have, what do you think about how I guess the question at hand is how do you kind of help people move forward in a way that is, I don't know if heart centric is the right word, but is, following what they truly are on the planet to do.
so without any irreverence intended, I think we're on the planet to do whatever the hell we want.
Okay.
And that direction comes from the desire and then commitment rather than some outside force telling us we need to go do this or
Sure.
that. If you think otherwise, that's your privilege too. And much like self authorship, you have as much right to that view as I will claim for mine. But you just mentioned something, Harris, about a fork in the road of your own, where you said you did what you loved, but then you had to go, uh, which is like a statement of non-choice. You had to go then and make money. I would say that that is a maybe a lack of clarity about what you love, because what you love should include the amount of income that you need to sustain it and have a specific and direct and continuous focus on that. Um, because that's one of the pillars of any building or edifice that you build. There's lots of buildings I see from my perch here in Vegas, and see buildings going up, and they always build the foundation first. And if you're going to do what you love, then there's a certain amount of, I say this not to be disrespectful, but there's a certain amount of common sense in that this is going to take this much a month to finance. And
Yeah.
so any complete plan for what you love would include those foundational elements, and saying, well, along with this, I'm going to need a $10,000 a month personal income, dispose just at my discretion to continue doing what I love, or 50,000 or 2,000, whatever it
Yeah.
is. All of that is
That's been a really difficult thing for me historically, is really coming to terms with that. You know, I had it. There was a good period of time where, like, my income was where I wanted it to be, and then I was able to
well,
go
that
do what I
every
love.
day of your life, your income has been where you want it to be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
never
Absolutely.
been a day that you've lived past maybe 15 years old that your income wasn't where you wanted it to be. Before
Right.
that, it's been conceived.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
This is a really interesting conversation. After I
Can I stop you right there, Tellman, just for a
you
moment?
totally can.
To hold on to that, because I'm sure it's great. Because to state that, Harris, is the much like I won, we lost, or I won, they lost. When my income was low, it was not because I wanted it, but when it was high, it was because I wanted it. It's the same type of thing. That's like treating your income like a team that you're watching play, so that when you're winning, it's part of a plan, but when you're not winning, it is being at the effect of life.
Somebody else's fault, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
no,
So,
I think it's even further than maybe I'm communicating, which is like, I wanted to do I take ownership of this. I wanted to do the thing I love so much that I stopped paying enough attention to the thing that was giving me that foundation. And I, you know I don't think I don't know, maybe spiritually as well, but I caused that. I mean, ultimately that was me saying, no, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to, and I make a joke that, they say that if you look at your five closest friends, take the average of the income of your five closest friends, and that's probably going to be your income.
I
And then
disagree strongly with that fallacy, but go ahead.
okay, great. I'm glad you do. But my joke is that, and so I became a comedian, and all of my five closest friends were broke comedians, and but it's just I say kiddingly. How do you disagree with that fallacy?
Well, I know a lot of people who hang around rich people who are broke as shit. They are become their bodyguards. They become their, consiglieres. They become their drivers. There's lots of people who are here in Vegas, in any big city in the world. You see people who move with the movers and the shakers, who never have the same commitment to risk or same prioritization of certain things, and so they begin to be at the effect of the afterglow of the efforts. So buying front row tickets to a sporting event does not make you an athlete.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, my kids were in the highest price school in Barcelona, and there was some really freaking rich parents at that school, and just because I mean, believe me, I was, nowhere. If income is the measure, I was nowhere near that. Shakira's kids went to the school, the school, so like she wasn't friends, but even if I took my 10, 20 closest friends, parents, I mean, that didn't pull me up financially at all. Those were just
No, but
people I knew.
committing to wealth like they did would have.
Sure, but
You
but
were
I committed to something different. I wasn't really.
which is amazing, right? And so this is you become like the 5 people you hang out with.
Right.
You become like the 5 people who your priorities are most closely aligned to. And sometimes
I like
that,
that.
has proximity, sometimes that doesn't. But it's the proximity of commitment, not the physical
Not the
proximity,
proximity.
as many people have
It's a huge fallacy. I mean,
fallacious.
But it does help. Here's the thing: if there is that commitment, and you choose to spend more time around people who have been and are making that same commitment around their business, around their finances, around their fitness level, around their mental health, their spiritual practice, their how they do as parents, like, it's not the only factor, but it is a very important ingredient in the process.
It can indeed help a lot. I agree, Tellman, with that. It can indeed help a lot, but it is not automatic. Community does not equal commonality.
No.
Community can call you to commonality. Community can expose you to the opportunity for commonality, because you can see, oh my God, if Tellman could do it, if this Kevin Nations guy could do it, if Harris could do it, then I could do it as well.
Right.
And then
you got to do it.
And you can see, the specific things that they do, and you can ask them, you can have more intimacy and say, how is it that you do it? You can get shortcuts to the plan, but you've got to take advantage of that proximity and begin matching their model commitment, whatever. You were about to say something before I cut you off. I wanted to go back to that because it was such a parallel, what I thought was not only helpful for Harris, but for maybe anyone watching. But you were about to say
so
something?
This is about doing what you love, right? And so when my ex-wife and I split up, like, I was a train wreck for a few years, and I started going to therapy for the first time in my life, and I found this amazing therapist that's more of a spiritual teacher than a therapist. I've been working with him for years at this point, and one of the big topics that I often speak with him about is doing what you love versus chasing the money. Right. And as a serial entrepreneur, I often find myself chasing the money and try to pull back from it and focus in on more on what I love. And I have personally found that some of the things that I thought I loved were not actually things that I love, but they were things to kind of keep my ego alive, keep me thinking I was and am who I thought I was or am. And so I'm curious about your experience in work with yourself or working with clients in getting in alignment around finding what they love and achieving financial success with it. What are how have you found that people can discern or realize the difference between what they're obsessed about, what they're desperate around, who they think they are, what they think they should do, versus what they actually love, what they love to do, what they love to create, who they're really meant to be in the world? Like, how do you help people, or do you have a way of helping people?
Well, I'm the one that introduced. I'm the one that introduced "Do What You Love." I think Kevin more talks about "Do What You Want." Right? Do those things come together?
They could be. So let's go back to you're like the 5 people you hang out with the most. And let's operate from the premise that there's some sort of divine thought, whether it's internal, whether it's from outside, whatever it is, but there's some sort of divine thought that helps you find your purpose. Or you could operate from the premise there's not either.
No, but I'm asking you.
Well, no, I'm getting to the point. So the best way to find out what you want is to be around yourself, absent those feedback at some point, like as much as possible. I know, Tellman, you run, I walk a lot. I try to walk often without any distractions. I'll just put on headphones and like classical music, or something that doesn't bring reminiscent, like if you listen to 70s music, you want to be young again. If you listen to, this certain music, you want to be, this or that, or you want to do certain things, or if you take in a lot of distractions. But a number of my clients, walk probably at least 10 miles a day. That's 2 or 3 hours if you're walking. And, there's a certain, as you're well aware of as a serial runner, Tellman, you've been a huge example for me in that, and I admire that about you. But I don't know about your experience, but for me, walking, there becomes a certain monotony to just one step after the other.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
I, even though it's not hard to walk, it may not be hard to run for you, but it's not hard to walk for me. But I always want to quit about like literally a couple thousand feet in.
Yeah.
And then once I've done that, once I get past like that 6 minute rejection,
That's right.
I can go for like 3 or 4 hours. Then
Yeah.
it's done. And so, but at like 5 or 6 minutes, it's like, why the hell am I doing this today? I really should go back and get some work done. I can do this. I can do this. Like everything screams for me to reject that daily commitment to go doing the walk. And on those walks, that's where I found, or I have an RV. I go out into to nature, and that's when I've had the most, you know, just starting to journal around those types of things. Because if I join a mastermind, I don't know if you run a mastermind, but if I join a mastermind or a mentoring group or a group that you put together, even on this call, I want to look good for you two guys and any listeners and this and that. I want to present the best, face that I can and the best representation of what I do. Look good for that Facebook who's treated me so well. So I'm not being completely myself on this call. I'm being what I want you guys in Facebook to see. And I will, I want to be the best reconnection from our longstanding friendship, and that I've fared well and I've done well. So there's a certain amount of truth, but it's not absolute naked truth. But when you're alone, I'll just use the word God. When you're alone with God for an extended period of time, hours or days, multiple days with multiple hours, and you're just out in nature or on a run, and the steps just begin to like bounce into each other one after one after one, I think that's when you begin to have more clarity as to what you want. Independent. So I think that what we want is always there. Um, Much like the statue of David was already in the marble that Michelangelo went and drug out of the marble quarry to begin carving. I think that
Right.
our perfect, what we want, is already there. And the goal isn't to find it. The goal is to remove the hoarding situation that we have of possessions, connections, and desire for approval, so that we can even get to that space and reveal it, rather than maybe find it outside ourselves to reveal it within ourselves.
Right.
So I think that's more it than everything is. Guys, if you're watching this, don't give a hell's hoot what I want for you or what I've said here. Like, Nation's made some great points, only to the point that I reminded you to listen to and trust yourself.
That's right.
So, and not to knock anybody else who's out there marketing legs off, but maybe it does. Don't listen to them either until you've listened to yourself. When you've listened to yourself about a destination, then you can look for people who can give you vehicles to help get you there quicker, fuel to help get you there more reliable, maps to help get you there more safely or more enjoyably. But really, no one but you and God, whatever that is, whether it's a voice inside you, whether it's a very, very white, but yet very, very Jewish, or very, 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 very white / Jewish / Middle African man in the sky. That's very confusing, the images.
Probably
But
all of it.
but we love it, right? So that guy, definitely guy, right? I'm saying all of this in jest because it's also very confusing to me. And but whatever it is, like just you, independent of other people's agendas for you, is the best way to find out what you want. And really, the only way that I found to get closer to that, there is no destination that I've ever been able to discover. It's just a daily. Um, if you get quiet every day, it helps. I don't have to. I don't have any resounding comfort to say, "Oh, you're going to get there." You know, on the third day of meditation, you're going to get to the complete. I think that's many times what we want as humans. We want that secret that's going to unravel it all on a definitive day. Well, on the fourth day, if you just meditate, then the fourth day, the
Few more days.
grand revelation of everything that you need to be and do in your life is going to come. I don't have that kind of comfort.
If you meditate exactly 32 minutes and say exactly 116 times for 4
That's
days in
right.
a row. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it. Just spending time alone will help eradicate. It won't really tell you what you want as much as it will reveal the fallacy of what you don't want.
Yeah.
And when all of that starts falling away, it's like, you know what? I don't really give a damn what Tellman thinks about me. And I say that with all love,
Yeah,
you know.
totally. No. All good, dude.
I don't really give a damn what, I don't really give a damn what, like, I think I'm this amazing. I don't really give a damn if I've got a brand new car or if I've just got one that cranks and runs well. As I've gone through and things have started fading away, really the only thing at this moment that I like literally is absolutely sacred is my relationship with my kids.
Right.
Like that, I would fight to the death to preserve.
Literally.
Other than that, everything else is, and my like integrity and my relationship to this mystery of what God is, like all of that's important. Finding more out about that, but besides those things, like everything else doesn't fucking matter.
That's right.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
right on.
so Kevin, I know you said that CHILLIONAIRE.com redirects to your Facebook page. So
It does.
You have your mastermind these days. Are you ever doing events then, or are you teaching workshops, or like what's if someone's like, oh, Kevin sounds cool, and I really want to.
Well, more than
from
Kevin
him,
sounds
like,
cool. Who are you
yeah,
looking to, and
yeah.
who are you hoping might be watching that might fit into what you're doing?
So interestingly enough, and this is not why I decided to do this. I decided to do this because Ross wrote about it, and I've loved his journey, and I love you guys. I've watched you be consistently on your journey for a long, long time, and I always have mad respect for someone who's stayed in the arena. Much like I said about you, like the two people in the U.S. political arena right now. I've got my differences with what they seem to stand for, if there's any way to know that, but I admire the fact they're in the arena, and that about you guys as well. I'm running an event in January that I'm going to start sharing some things about really, really soon. It's going to be a little bit larger event here in Vegas. Large by my standards is anything more than 10 people. So don't, guys, get your hopes up. There's going to be some big arena. But I'm going to run an event here. And so if you want to just kind of follow my Facebook profile, I'll probably be announcing some stuff with that soon. Not going to be that expensive to come from, but it's going to follow along some of the things that I've shared here. Is just like how to optimize your life for self success by your own terms, like whatever, how to find out what you would choose that was success meant to you, and then follow that unapologetically rather than bouncing from teacher to teacher, leader to leader, master to master, telling you what success should be. Having the courage to just say, no, this is what I really want in life. And then perhaps just if you are following people, which I recommend, and finding leaders, finding them, with a specific, I want somebody to help, give me a vehicle that's going to be faster. I want somebody to give me a fuel that's going to help me last longer. Something along those lines.
Yeah, by the way, Tellman and I are doing a course together. I don't know if he's mentioned it to you, but it's called Automatic Audience, and it's teaching people how to do successful virtual summits. The only reason I mention it is because this interview out of all 44 other ones. It's kind of ironic that it's number 45 and we said Trump on it. But anyway, who was president number 45. But anyway, my
Oh,
point is that this talk I think is missing from, well, probably every internet marketing, digital marketing course, but this talk is missing from ours. And um, I would, I'm positing to Tellman and also to you that early on, I'd like to point people to this as they come through the course, so that they're really thinking about, you know, doing what they want. We talk about how to choose a niche and stuff like that, but really we didn't position it that way. So yeah, do I have your permission? And what do you think, Tellman?
no, I totally agree. I mean, the more, if you're building an audience, if you're working with clients, you're trying to attract certain types of clients, certain types of customers. When you are choosing that market or choosing that niche, vertical, whatever you want to call it, I personally believe if you are working within an area that you've already loved since you were a kid, that you have decades of experience because you've read all the books and you've listened to all the interviews and like I love hot peppers, like I love hot sauce, it's one of the things. And so yeah, I've been doing that a lot longer than I've been doing internet marketing stuff. I've been doing that longer than hypnosis stuff. Like I have 15 bottles of hot sauce that I made that are all different in my fridge that my kids are asking me to get out of there. So it's like choosing a topic that you're already fully committed to, I think is such an enormous advantage because most people are going to hop around from thing to thing because of the lack of commitment. So I think choosing something that you already, if you can, and if you can see a correlation, if you're starting a business and choosing an area where you're helping people within a community or a group that not only do you love the topic, but you love the other people who love it. I just think you're going to get out of bed in the morning because you love it anyway, whether or not you make any money. And then the money is better. Or it's icing on the cake.
I have a t-shirt that my, I never promoted the Chillionaire brand. I've had this trademarks for about 12 years. I never promoted this brand, and my daughter works for me now. And she made me start wearing Chillionaire swag. She's like, Dad, clients are asking for it and you should just get behind it. It's your brand. I started wearing it publicly and it got a lot of reactions, people asking. And I made another that said, be happy, get rich. Man, did I get some interesting feedback from that shirt, because a lot of people just wearing it out in the general population of people said, oh, you've got those backwards. Oh, you've got your shirt on upside down.
Right.
I can tell you, guys and gals, Tellman talked about picking a niche that you love, but also I can tell you that if you are indeed happy with yourself, where you're living, what car you're driving, not everybody wants to drive a Lambo. They're uncomfortable as fuck. And so you have uncomfortable cars to drive those things. And so if you like comfort, that's not your vehicle, even though it might have looked good. It might have been an aspiration at one point. Like, go test drive. I thought for a long time I wanted to drive a Ferrari, and I had some extra cash at one point a few years ago, and I went to the dealership and I drove a Ferrari, and it was the worst experience I ever had. I was like, this is terrible. And so I bought a Rolls convertible like that week, which has like like it's the exact opposite. It's a convertible, and I was driving to California, but it's got these big lazy boy kind of seats. And you go from 0 to 60 miles an hour if you're not on the interstate in like whatever time you want to do. I like driving under the speed limit in town, not 10 miles over. I never rev my engine. It's just like I want that slow, quiet purr. Everybody wants something different, right? And so when you decide what what you want, and realize it's okay to want what you want, you're going to attract clients a lot more than when you're trying to not only gain their investment, but gain your identity through their approval.
Right.
Those are, when you're advocating for both of those, it's going to be much harder than when you already approve of yourself. And, one of the things we've been talking on political candidates, because it's in our minds, we're being inundated with that. Uh, Apparently, and I don't know people's inner workings of their hearts and souls, but whatever you think about our current political candidates right now, they both approve of themselves.
Right.
Like they both think they are the answer to the ills of the world, and they are very strong in it. And so, more so than, if they were unsure about that, I would imagine they would have even greater, they would have more difficulty finding people to follow them if they weren't sure. And when
Right.
they're not sure, when they're looking for validation in others versus being a projection of their own internal validation, but they're looking for validation from others, that typically is seen as a sign of weakness, and they have more difficulty raising money and getting votes. And the same thing goes
Right.
for you. You're going to polarize people, but you are much better at finding out who you want to be and say, I run an exclusive audience. By that, that means I'm not going to have this big following of people that is going to be saying, oh my God, I just love everything
Right.
Kevin Nations does, because it's designed to appeal to a more exclusive audience. But for the 40 or so people that are clients of mine right now, many of them, hopefully most of them, think that they're in the best place ever for their particular needs, like it's a bullseye.
It,
So,
it,
anyway.
this is so this is the, I mean, I'm guessing many or most people have similar challenges, but one of the biggest challenges that I have with this topic is that there's what I want, right? And this goes back to when I first became an entrepreneur. I still struggle with it every day. There's what I want, which is different than what I have, right? I want more money. I want more success. I want to achieve this. I want to create that. I want to do this. And for me, I have a very hard time being happy and accepting of who I am and what I've got. And so I tend to not really appreciate what I have and what I've got, or take care of what I have and what I got, while I'm focused on getting what I want. And so I have a real hard time, like, um, uh, I guess, getting clear in my head and my heart about how can I be happy now and aggressively go after what I want at the same time? Because doesn't that indicate that I want change, that I want something different than what I've got? So I always get myself into trouble with this, definitely with my kids. I'm definitely always pointing out to them the things that they're doing wrong, instead of putting more effort into appreciating the things that they're doing right. You know, so I'm curious. I mean, is this something you run into?
So, a question I have, because the late Zig Ziglar said it really, really powerfully. You got to be before you do, and you got to do before you can have.
Right.
And so, are you unhappy with what you have and what you do, or are you unhappy with who you are?
It's probably some of both, honestly.
So,
Right.
I would seek, to follow the words of the great philosopher Zig Ziglar, and work first to be happy in who you are. And when you're like, you know what, I'm happy now being Tellman Knudsen, then what you do and what you have, um, I think that there is what I think is a misnomer,
Mm,
that being is a derivative of doing and having. And I think it's the opposite.
that's right.
And so, and much evidence has been said that it's opposite, but most people who are trying to puppet you, hypnotize you into believing the opposite,
That's right.
that your being is a derivative of doing and having. And if you
Right.
have a fancy car or you get on a stage, that you're a better businessman. Well, that's absolutely a fallacy, because the
Totally. Right. Yeah.
business person is the guy who can sit on the back. You and I,
Right.
all of us on this stage know that the people who have the most money are sitting on the second to the last row. They paid exactly full price to be in the event. They'll pay full price to go to any event they want to, and none that they don't. And as soon as they walk in the room, it's almost like the Godfather has arrived,
Right.
and
Right.
the stage has difficulty paying attention to them, or they're even completely unknown except for two or three of the most elite speakers, and they're going there to get that nugget or to support someone or whatever. And so, yeah, just decide, like, literally, this is less maybe for the audience at large, but they can take from. But for you, Tellman, do just write down who you want to be, and more specifically, as if it were a sculpture, write down who you don't want to be, and any actions that are contributing to who you don't want to be. Just work to set up an appointment with the Volunteers of America or the Goodwill to come pick it
That's right.
up.
That's
You
right.
know, I can tell you that much like walking purges your mind from external programming and external hypnosis, cleaning your physical space can also do similar things. It's been said that clutter is a sign of a brilliant mind, whatever. But and I've had I vacillate between like OCD cleanliness and then massive clutter when I'm back and forth. But simplifying one's life and having less tends to, in quantitatively wise, you can have like expensive things, but having fewer things has, in my opinion, been one of the things that has led to greater happiness. It's been quite the opposite of what's proposed. I there's been a couple of specific things that have brought me happiness, but generally speaking, having more things has made me less happy.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely a collector of unusual knickknacks, and it's kind of built up over time. I need to do a great purge, to be honest.
Yeah, I've
Cool.
I'm the opposite because I've moved around country so much. So when I left the U.S., we sold everything and put some of the not things that we sold, the things that we didn't sell in the warehouse, and that was there for 11 years until last year. And I got rid, just basically threw everything away, or gave some to a friend that sells stuff on eBay just because he wanted to, but mostly threw everything away. And then I just moved again from Barcelona to here, and I had collected some stuff over the 8 years. But yeah, I'm happy to. But my thing is more getting disconnected and moving, right, rather
Right.
than collecting a bunch of stuff. Anyway, listen, it's been 90 minutes, so
Yeah,
thanks for
we did a
sticking with us
power
so
interview
long.
today.
This has been amazing. It went really fast, and it was really great. It was a really great discussion. I hope that anybody that gets to hear it gets as much out of it as at least I personally did, and it seems like Tellman did as well. So, thanks for donating your time to us and to our ever-growing audience.
Oh, guys, I had fun just hanging out with you guys. If no one ever saw it, besides the three of us, I would have had fun hanging out. And if anybody
Likewise.
does, appreciate you guys.
Yeah, right
And
on.
to your point, Harris, as we're leaving, yes, if you guys want to, get behind that little event, just reach out. We'll talk about how to do that.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Go to chillionaire.com. You'll find Kevin's Facebook profile, and you can reach out to him and say what's up.
Find out more about that.
Awesome. This was great. Thanks again, Harris. Thank you, Kevin. And thank you, all of our wonderful Tellman and Fellman show fans. We will see you guys tomorrow morning.
Bye, everybody. See you tomorrow
See you.
morning. Bye.